Welcome to another episode of the Sovereign CEO podcast. I'm Karla Treadway. And today we're going to be talking about the BC Ostrich Farm story, Universal Ostrich Farms. I'm going to look at some of the arguments on both sides here. We're going to talk to the owners today. I've been spending some time sacrificing myself, listening to CBC and some other legacy media reporting around this to see what they were saying. Cole's notes here, guys. So Universal Ostrich Farm in Edgewood, British Columbia, they had an avian flu outbreak, which apparently is a very big deal. 30% of the flock died at that time. So 69 ostriches had died. But way back in December and January, now the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, they've ordered a slaughter of the remaining flock. We're looking at 400 birds. And Canada has this very extreme black or white stamping out policy. And the farm has challenged this order in court, but so far, every single appeal has been rejected. We're going to bring Katie on here from Universal Ostrich Farm. I want to hear the whole story. There's so much to this that legacy media is leaving out. There's a lot of details that make this case really curious, in my opinion. It doesn't seem rational, and we're going to dive into that today. Katie.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. It's so nice for you to be here.
Aw, thanks, Karla, so much for doing this. It's such an interesting time here right now. It is, yeah, it's an interesting time in the world, I think, right now.
Oh man, is it ever?
Yeah.
We're gonna dive right into this. I know you're busy. I know you're doing interviews. You got lawyer meets. There's lots of things going on right now. I actually was doing some research this weekend about the farm, and I painfully listened to some CBC reporting around this. So I'm sure you've heard some of it as well. I'd love to get your take, but for any of the listeners here who don't know your story, can you give the listeners a little bit of a backstory about what's your farm all about? Why are these ostriches important?
Right. So since COVID-19, so for the past 4 to 5 years, we have become a research facility. Before that, we were working with the ostrich meat, ostrich oil, which the ostrich oil from an animal is extremely therapeutic and healing for all different things like eczema and acne, psoriasis, scar tissue, burn victims. But when COVID-19 happened, we deviated our focus purely to the research of the antibodies of an ostrich. And the ostrich antibodies are extremely robust. They have the potential to cure viruses and treat illness and diseases for the future. We partnered with a gentleman out of Kyoto, Japan named Dr. Tsukamoto, and he holds 36 plus worldwide patents, all surrounding the robust antibodies of an ostrich. This is not new science, so this is proven science, and it is working in Japan right now. While we were working through our research with the antibodies and the ostriches, we had reached out to the federal government for funding and looking for support. Now, through our legal battle, we've kind of seen that maybe that put a little bit of a target on our back. So in December of 2024, we had illness here on our farm, and we had about 300 to 500 ducks that came into our farm. And that's when our ostriches had gotten sick. But the interesting thing about this was that more than half of our farm, to 3/4 of our farm, never got sick, never had any symptoms, and there was no deaths. Those animals, which now we can relate that to, is because in 2020 we had the same symptoms as we had here in 2024 December. Those symptoms, though, we did the proper tissue sampling, which is a gold standard sample, and that was with a vet. That came back positive for Pseudomonas bacteria in 2020. Now that we're looking at it, though, we tested egg yolk from back in 2020 with those ostriches, and their egg yolk shows markers in their memory cells of their egg yolk for H5N1. So there's a very good chance that those ostriches in 2020 had H5N1, but they were dying from Pseudomonas bacteria. So they were not dying. We lost about 10 ostriches back in 2020, and we had a herd of 300. So speeding up now, we're kind of going back and forth through our legal battle here, we've learned a ton. So we started recognizing the symptoms here in December. Those symptoms presented themselves like in 2020. We thought Pseudomonas bacteria right away. So we called our vet. It was through the holidays. He couldn't come out to do the appropriate testing as quick as he wanted to. Pseudomonas bacteria is also not a reportable bacteria for Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So we were doing all of our own due diligence as a farm. We were waiting to get a hold of our vet, and we started our own quarantine measures, and we did all of our own cleanup protocols, and like every farmer does when you don't want your rest of your herd or rest of your flock to get sick. And we got an anonymous phone call from well, CFIA phoned and said an anonymous phone call went into them and said that they were sure that we had avian influenza. And so we said, well, that really doesn't sound like it fits because these symptoms are just like Pseudomonas bacteria back in 2020. And none of those ostriches from 2020 prior that have been on our farm are even sick. They obviously have their firewall, they have their antibodies, they have their natural immunity, and so they're safe. But we have all the ostriches on our farm from 2020 after that were going through their illness. Um,
Mhm.
and we told them that there were some that were passed away. Yes, we had some deaths, but then we had ostriches that got sick and they recovered. So the even Canadian Food Inspection Agency said, well, this does not sound like avian influenza because in a commercial poultry situation, which we are not,
Mhm.
they said there'd be 40 to 50,000 dead within 24 to 36 hours. Now that's because,
So it's very serious.
yeah,
Because yeah, my understanding is there have been millions of birds killed. Like, if you get even one bird that's sick, the whole flock has to be killed
yeah,
because it spreads that fast, they all die. Is that pretty standard that birds don't just, like, recover from this like it's a cold?
we don't give them a chance. So
Mm,
this is a problem too. So we have there's a few issues. So one, we're not a commercial poultry facility. We really tried to go off that at first and said, listen, we need to be removed from the poultry category because we are a red meat flightless bird in the ratite family of our emu, rheas, and ostriches. We're ratites. We are not for commercial sale. We're not in commercial sales or we do not trade internationally our ostriches. And then in a in a lot of these situations, they do mass culling, this is what they're trying to do here is stamping out. But the problem with stamping out is that we're stamping out biodiversity and genetic diversity, and we're killing all the potential survivors. So we're not just killing off the possibility of virus, we're killing all the antibodies and the firewalls for the animals to pass down to their young, and then also be resilient and resistant to whatever may come next. So, when you have
Mhm.
say a prized cow or you have a herd of cattle and you go to the auction and you're looking for the best genetics and you're looking for the biggest bull and the healthiest bull and then you want to have a good bloodline and you want to have good genetics because you want strong calves and you don't want illness. So when they come in and they're killing everybody's herds or flocks, they are killing everything with nothing like that in mind. They're killing off biodiversity, genetic diversity, the bloodlines, and the genetic strength. So back to us here, when they came, we were shocked. We offered this. We said, yes, okay, sure. You guys can come and do a couple tests. We'd love to rule it out that it's not. And now we're
mhm,
learning that was probably one of our biggest mistakes was allowing them to come and run these tests. Because when they came here, they showed up with two PCR tests, and that
Mhm.
alarmed us right away, obviously, because we were like, a PCR test? You're not going to take blood or a serological sample. You're not going to do tissue? Nope, just the PCR
Mhm.
tests. Then we asked them, would you please test all more than three-quarters of our farm that never got sick, had no symptoms, and no deaths? They said no. We said, would you
yeah,
test the ostriches that have had symptoms but then recovered? Nope. They just wanted two samples from two deceased ostriches that laid there for 16 to 18 hours waiting for them to show up. So when they left with those results, we felt very uneasy because we all know with a PCR test, if you run it at high cycles, you can achieve any result you want. And sure enough, within
Mhm.
24 hours, we got our lab results back. And we all know the government doesn't work at midnight, 1 in the morning. And our lab results were being ran at the Abbotsford lab. in British Columbia at 1:30 in the morning. And this is not an accredited lab for diagnosing H. You can only diagnose the H5 at the lab in Abbotsford. Yeah, so we had then, sorry, and then we had the only accredited lab in Winnipeg is in Winnipeg to test for the H5N1. And our results hadn't even
Uh,
got there yet. And the results, when they got to that Winnipeg lab, we already had the CAL order was signed on December 31st. They already signed the death of our animals before the results got to the accredited lab that could test for the H5N1. So that we found out through our legal proceedings. So that was strange. One more thing we found out through our legal proceedings is that in November, remember in December is when we had illness here. In November, they
uh-huh.
contacted a landfill nearby, Udachina landfill, and they asked them if they would accept a large volume of animals and a large volume of large animals. And so that was kind of strange that they were already in November asking to see if they would accept that. December, we get sick. January 2nd, we get uh our quarantine instructions. January 2nd, sorry, we actually get a notice saying that we qualify for special rare genetics. Special rare genetics, we thought, great, fantastic. We can save our flock. Then January 10th, that got taken away from us and said, sorry, you don't qualify for special rare genetics because of we don't have enough staff to perform the testing for you to qualify for special rare genetics. During the interim of January 2nd, January 10th, we also had we tried to go for an exemption package. That exemption package on our farm was made
Uh-huh.
for solely a commercial poultry facility. So the commercial poultry facility, and it was only made for ducks, geese, turkeys, and chickens. We said there's no
Uh,
emus, rheas, or ostriches on this exemption package. They told us if we don't fill out that exemption package, and even if we marked, we have to, if it's all no's, we have to fill out this exemption package to qualify or have a chance of saving our herd. So otherwise we're in non-compliance and we're going to not have that opportunity anyway. So we didn't hesitate. I mean, we hesitated, but then we just filled out the package. And of course, by January 10th, we get a notice saying you have been denied the exemption package and you are to go out and kill all your own animals by your own hand and bury them back in the hayfield by February 1st. And so then the fight kind of started at that point because we were not going to go kill all of our healthy animals by our
uh-huh.
own hands. We have animals that have trusted us for 35 years, most of them in their 20s, when we knew that they weren't sick. We knew that they were healthy. And so this
Uh-huh.
has taken us on a journey now of all we've asked for this whole time is the ability to test our animals. Please test our animals to prove their health. Please test
Uh-huh.
all the animals that are living because they only took 2 tests off 2 deceased animals. So we said, please test our living animals for illness. And they will not do that. So we're 9 months in, being denied the right to test, threatened 6 months in jail and a $200,000 fine if we test our own animals. And then this
How does that make sense?
no, this doesn't make sense. And I think this is what's really starting to sound alarming to all Canadians and then on a global scale internationally is this this is corruption. But where did we lose our property rights because we are under quarantine? And where did we lose the right? I mean, our income has been cut off for 9 months, so we can't sell or do anything, which I mean, we understand. But we've lost
Uh-huh.
our rights to test or treat our own animals without the threat of jail time.
What's their reasoning behind that? What is their reason for legal action if you test? What reasons have they given you?
Their legal reasons is it's just in their quarantine policy. So this is what we've been trying to address this whole time too is this broken, flawed policy of the stamping out and quarantine procedures that are actually stripping us away from our rights and the rights to our animals that we own, our property rights, and our rights
Uh-huh.
as Canadian citizens. So they don't really go much into it besides the threat of that. No, you cannot test or treat your animals, and no byproducts or products are to leave the farm. Um, so we've been, what we've been finding out here now, we want to go speed up is we've had only a court proceedings in our judicial appeal, our federal court of appeal. All of these court proceedings are only based on the December 31st call order day. That's it.
Mhm.
So was their decision to kill all of our animals justifiable? Did they do their due diligence? Was this, did they do their job correctly? We have not been able to, in 9 months, have any scientific proof or data come back at us that, or to them, allowed in the courts. 244 days today, these animals remain healthy. So they're healthy, no illness, no symptoms, no deaths. And we are sitting here, we're sitting here just fighting for their lives. And all because we can't test them. They also just keep moving the goalpost. So at one point, it was trading partner policy that was to do with the stamping out. And that's why they have to kill. It's to protect our trading partner agreements, international biosecurity protocols, to protect our commercial poultry facilities, and our poultry association. So we have that's been a massive problem. That is what we're trying to address here. The commercial poultry facilities.
Agree to testing.
Yeah,
If they agreed to testing and they came and they did find out that the other birds were in fact sick, would you take that fear of avian flu seriously? Would you say yes to the call if they did find that the herd was infected?
absolutely. If we had independent or if there are other like second opinion testing, we would want another independent testing as well as their own done at the same time, and not using PCR
Mhm.
tests. We would want serological testing. We would want the appropriate tests done to be able to do this and know that we're getting the most accurate results. And we would want, yeah, but absolutely, if all of our animals were showed that they were all infected and sick, absolutely. We would not want to put anybody at risk. We would not be going this far and fighting if we didn't believe in this. Um, by testing our old egg yolk, we already show that we have the antibodies in the eggs. That is why
Mhm.
more than three-quarters of our farm never got sick. Canadian Food Inspection Agency has not been on our farm in over 6 months. So if they had a deep fear and a seated fear for public health and safety, there's just another reason. Like, why would they have
Mhm.
not been on our farm within the last 6 months to do
They would have
more
been there.
testing, to make
That's
sure
right.
that see if the animals are sick, to see if it's gotten worse or if it's gotten better, or if we're sitting here putting the public more at risk. They know we have supporters here. They know we've had about thousands of people, probably a couple thousand people come through here. Everybody remains healthy, but
Mhm.
they don't have a concern by, without not coming here. So we have, in our eyes, I mean, we have a living vault of immunity, a renewable source of antibodies that can protect animal and human welfare. And even the United States, the Trump administration, RFK and Dr. Oz have recognized this. That's what I was talking about, them moving the goalpost. It was about trading partner policies that we
Mhm.
bring on our largest trading partner. And our largest trading partner is saying, do not kill the research. Do not kill these animals. Let's test these animals to prove their health. Let's look at their antibodies because there's potential for therapeutic innovation to help on a global scale for viruses and disease in the future. And avian influenza, we could be making a therapeutic solution right now with the H5N1 antibodies that we have on the farm to treat H5 with migratory birds in highly migratory populated migratory bird paths. We could be helping farmers with antibodies for their cattle, for their dairy cows, for their chickens in a commercial poultry facility. But then, we got two letters from the Trump administration. RFK has now sent two letters. They've both been ignored.
Mhm.
In the letters from RFK, he recognizes that these animals are not, it does not, they're not shedding this virus, and nothing sheds in infinitely. As
Mhm.
well as these animals, there is an incubation period for the virus. It is 7 to 14 days. It was on the Canadian Food Inspection Agency website. It does not shed. We're at 244 days. It's like you getting sick and then you recover from your cold, but your doctor says to you, you can't go back to work for another year, just in case.
So this is what they have posted, that the animals essentially are not contagious after 14 days, and you're at 244.
Yep. It was on their own website, recognizing that the incubation period for H5N1 is 7 to 14 days. So and then they moved
Mm.
the goalpost again to saying we have a novel reassortment of H5N1. Then we attacked that with science, and that got dropped. Then they went back to trading partner policies and said, we're doing this to protect our international trade and the Poultry Association. Then, now, because we're getting to the end and they want to justify what they're about to do here, which is murdering all these healthy animals, now they're back to we have one of the most one of the most serious strains of H5N1. They've been actually retesting the animals over the last 9 months, and now we have the most virulent strain of H5N1, and when injected to mice, it kills the mice. So in 9 months, they've sat with 2 PCR tests in a lab, growing who God knows what in a lab setting, in a petri dish. And they're coming up with results that are going to give them justification to the world who's going to actually pay attention, rather than listen to the proven science and the epidemiologists and virologists and immunologists that we have as expert witnesses. And they're fear mongering the public to say this is why we're going to move in and kill all these animals, because now they have one of the most virulent strains. It's inaccurate. It's
Mhm.
speculation. They have not been here, and not one of these ostriches have ever been tested on this farm for their health. So we're just fear
They're also
mongering.
mocking the situation. My When I listened to CBC,
Yeah,
they were laughing at the word antibody, first of all,
yeah,
as if antibodies aren't actually a thing.
yeah,
And as soon as the conversation about RFK and Trump and Dr. Oz came up, their Trump derangement syndrome, is, instead of seeing that as a president of another country is taking this seriously, maybe we should pay attention. They
yeah,
took it as further evidence that they don't. So the narratives that CBC are painting is, um, yeah, these animals are dangerous. Antibodies aren't real. Look at all the anti vaxxers. And this is being used as a far right anti government rally.
yeah.
That's what I listened to via CBC yesterday.
And I want to say, shame on the public media, the mainstream media right now. I praised them for a
Mhm.
long time because they were giving us really, really good, non-biased. They were doing a proper look at our farm. They were asking us for our feedback, our take on the story. They were letting the public really know what was going on both sides. But now they're just talking about what's going on with Canadian Food Inspection Agency and all Canadian Food Inspection
Mm.
Agencies comments and statements. So they went from doing on a non-biased approach, actually doing the proper journalism and coverage of the farm as well of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, but now they've turned one way and they're just covering the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And I mean, we have a really big problem here in Canada because we have eroded trust between Canadians and a very important organization like Canadian Food Inspection Agency. It is a very important agency. It holds a very important place in Canada, but there are some flaws and fractures in it, and we need to heal that because with that eroded trust between Canadians and them, what we're finding now is farmers are scared. They're scared of the policy. So now we're actually
Mhm.
putting Canadians more at risk because farmers don't want to call the Canadian Food Inspection Agency for any guideline, for any guidance or help or outbreak response because they're afraid that with that one phone call, they're going to lose their property rights. They're going to lose all the rights to their animals. They could most likely
Mhm.
lose their livelihoods. So is it worth the phone call or shoot, shovel, shut up? And
That's right.
if a farmer had something actually really serious that we should be looking at, we're going to miss that. because
Yeah.
they're fearful of an organization that's supposed to be supporting us, not attacking us. And one of the big things in that policy that is a big concern is that Canadian Food Inspection Agency can come onto your property and kill every animal you own based off suspicion. They don't even need a test. So they can come in, lock you out of your own property, kill every animal you own based off suspicion.
And a faulty PCR test, which is the same black and white approach we saw in COVID.
Yeah.
Clearly, with COVID, they were going with a 100%, like every single person on the earth needs to be vaccinated before we will take away lockdowns. And I remember a friend of mine saying, when does everyone in Afghanistan get vaccinated? Like, it's a fool's errand that every single person on earth was going to get a vaccination. In your case, this bacteria, the thing that made the ostriches sick in the first place,
Yeah.
were wild ducks.
Mhm.
So, are we going to kill every single wild bird?
I asked the vet that. So we had the Canadian Food Inspection Agency vet here in January. And I said, so this is being spread through migratory birds. So killing our ostriches out here that are flightless, they're not quarantined. We can test and monitor them. So by killing them, we're going to save the world. What are we going to do about all the migratory birds in the world? And she said, well, that's wildlife. What are you going to do? Kill all the wildlife in the world? And I was like, well, you're just nothing makes sense here. So the wild birds are allowed to fly all over the world spreading this, but we're going to kill all of our livestock, jeopardizing our agricultural
Uh-huh.
sector, punishing the generational farmers that have dedicated their lives to supplying us with nutritional food for generations, and we're going to lose our farmers along the way, which is our food security. And but I kind of have been red pilled, I guess, for the last 9 months pretty hard, and learned that this is exactly what they want, though. They don't want our backyard chickens. They don't want our cattle. They don't want farms. They want control over the food, because if we eat their factory grown meat and crickets and all that, then you who controls the food controls the people. And you do
Uh-huh.
start to put these together, because learning about Canadian Food Inspection Agency takes all their directives from the World Animal Health Organization, which is World Health Organization, which is under the One Health agenda and the United Nations. So
Uh,
we're actually taking all our directives in Canada from non-elected governing bodies that are international. We're not protecting our Canadian rights. They're steamrolling farmers at a rapid pace, and we have to also really get away from this thinking of just protecting the Canadian Poultry Association, because in my mind, I would think that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency should be there to offer the same protection to each industry, the cattle industry, the dairy industry, the ostrich industry. There should not be favoritism or a bias to one industry, and we should be looking at this all. For 244 days, healthy animals that offer the opportunity for therapeutic advancements that would take us away from the need of vaccinations and more pills and more pills. And so we're at odds with big pharma. This is a big fight, it's a global fight. I've just been so humbled, and our farm's been just so blessed with the international attention and awareness, where people really get it. They really understand that we have something really valuable here, and the government does not want that here.
mhm. Do you think that they're resistant to the idea of a potential treatment cure for the avian flu by way of antibodies?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's no money. There's not the money in antibodies, but there's money in vaccinations. And then, within those vaccinations, you have so much more control. Big pharma has a control over their additives, all over their what goes in them and how they're given. If we could actually push people away, I just wish people understood their own anatomy and their own body, and that antibodies, you have them, Karla, I have them. You can't chuckle at antibodies. We have them. Antibodies are why we are sitting here today with natural immunity. And it's how strong our antibodies are, our firewall and defense system to whatever comes our way. So if we could
Uh-huh.
just work off adding to our natural antibodies in a natural way, and One thing about the antibodies is if we start to breathe them in, or we have a nasal spray or lozenges, they go to work in our body immediately. Whereas if you get a vaccination, it takes up to 10 days for a vaccination to even start to start to work. So with the natural antibodies and the therapeutics, if somebody was hospitalized with H5N1 and you started administering natural antibodies for H5N1 into them, that would go to work immediately to create a firewall towards it and start to repair and heal your body. So, yep, there is a huge resistance to wanting to test these animals and use their antibodies because it goes against
Yeah.
the billions and billions of dollars in the industry of big pharma.
Well, it's being framed as a conspiracy theory that it would even be possible that that antibodies are a thing based on legacy media, but also that this could be a treatment. But I've actually taken chicken egg antibodies for the last year from a gentleman named John Hare.
Yeah,
It's an actual it's an actual thing. It's strange that that is the conspiracy.
it is strange that that's the conspiracy, but I think where the biggest, conspiracy is why the silence? Why the non-willingness to work with one of our largest trading partners and the Trump administration with a collaboration and offer to work with the FDA and the NIH? To the organizations, the very organizations we relied on heavily to work with during COVID-19 to come up with solutions. But now they don't want to even talk to them. They don't want to, they don't want to collaborate and work with them right now on when H5N1 is not just a it's not a just a problem in Canada. This is a global problem. So
Mhm.
their silence is says it all. To us, them not being here and doing any site visits and that in over 6 months says it all. They're not worried about us actually what we're spreading here. Their quarantine measures were outlandish. Like, netting our whole farm, 50 acres, netting it. So then wild birds would be getting caught in it all the time. And there was things like building new fences. Who's going to build all these new fences? It was winter too. So we're supposed to build more fences to keep them back. Um, all within the mindset we knew that we were going to that build them. They know that we have not been able to meet those quarantine measures because you can't meet them. They know,
Mhm.
like with hazmat suits, ostriches peck 4,000 times a day. Those hazmat suits, we would be shredded every day. Number two, if you walk in there with a hazmat suit, they will go crazy because they don't notice you. They don't recognize you. Sorry.
Those are big birds. You don't want to mess around.
Yeah, and it would make them scared. So the 350-pound birds, they are prehistoric. They lasted for millions of years on this planet for some reason, and that's because of their natural immunity and ability to create robust antibodies to whatever comes their way.
Mhm.
And the one thing that might kill them off is our Canadian government.
Mm.
So, there is no replacing the genetics that we have here. There is no replacing the decades of environmental challenges that each ostrich has went through here. We would never be able to replace the immune system of that animal into another animal. If we replaced all these ostriches with young ostriches, we actually create a bigger risk for Canadians because these animals would not have immune systems yet, like built up immune systems. They
Mhm.
would be working on building their immune system. So they'd be starting from ground zero. And that's where if you have a weakened immune system that doesn't have their firewalls yet, you do have more potential for, say, a mutation of a virus because it's a weaker host. Our ostriches are strong birds with robust antibodies, big built up firewalls in their immunity, and they pose way more benefit being alive than they do slaughtered. And it's going to be inhumanely. Nothing makes sense here. 244 days, not one of these ostriches are tested. We are not internationally trading. We have the offer to collaborate with international partners saying that they see the scientific research and the opportunity for on a global scale, and Canada is just not wanting to listen to it. We are in a precedence war. I do know that too. They don't want to look bad. And if they test one of these ostriches out there or one of these tests go out there and show that they're healthy, then, it's, I think, more about saving face. And and it's unfortunate
Yeah.
because once these heartbeats stop, and the booming in our fields and the decades of animals that have survived and thrived for decades are gone. There's no getting them back. So this is either going to be one of the largest mistakes in Canadian history, or we're going to be heroes. And Canadian Food Inspection Agency is going to stop it before we make the biggest mistake. And they could be heroes by working with their antibodies and bringing it into the world on a global scale.
And unfortunately, because Trump in the United States is involved, like you had no choice but to go to America. You exhausted every single pathway possible in Canada. So that really is the only doorway through at this point. But because of, again, the absolute Trump derangement syndrome,
Mhm.
where anything that Trump does is pure evil, according to Canadian legacy media, Canadian politicians, that's going to work against you on the Canadian side.
It's very, very unfortunate. What we're seeing though is an uptick in Canadians saying thank you to the US. It's kind of nice to see this whole elbows up, go elbows down, and
Mhm.
actually look at this as our own country. Here you can't go into the woods. We're being chased out of the woods. We're having to register seeds. You might have to register your garden. And now we're killing healthy animals at an alarming rate. And um,
Yeah.
the US is the one that wants to recognize common sense and actually, help, and is willing to put their own presidency into the Trump administration as an olive branch to say, stop. We want to help. We want to work with you. And we haven't heard from one of
Mhm.
our leaders in one of our political parties. We haven't heard from Mark Carney. We haven't even had any empathy from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. It's that not listen, empathetic. This, we understand how bad this is, why this is going to hurt you. And this is, this is going to be awful. We're sorry that this has to happen. They would come out here and say things like, well, the chicken people are sad too. And we were like, wow, this is,
That's very different. Having an animal for 3 decades
yeah,
as opposed to the 2 years max that you would have a chicken
yeah.
before you kill it.
Yeah, it is. And these animals are touched by our family every day. They have names, they have personalities. They have grown up. I've watched them grow up. They've watched me grow up. It's a really, beautiful, unique situation. And we're at that, we're at a loss because of bureaucratic overreach.
Mm.
Not because of actually looking at science, innovation. Stamping out has to not be a one size fits all solution. This is what we're fighting for, is there
Mhm.
is other ways. Them themselves actually say in their section 48 of the stamping out policy that there's more than a binary approach to dealing with avian influenza. So there's more than just killing everything, quarantine and monitoring and then retesting. There is
Uh-huh.
these other options, but they jumped right to stamping out with us, and they just are not willing to go back on that. And remember, stamping out sounds really strong when you're talking about a virus, but when you say stamping out natural immunity, and that is what we all have to start to focus on, it's a massive
Mhm.
problem and it's putting humanity at risk. If we lose our natural immunity within our farms and through our ecosystem, and that our natural immunity is gone, we will become reliant on vaccinations for survival. You will be taking pills. You will be for survival because we don't have the antibodies within our natural food diet.
Well, if they admit that ostriches can have natural immunity,
Yeah.
then where else does that trickle up? Then we also have to admit that people have natural immunity and can build up antibodies towards diseases and don't necessarily need a black and white approach to pharmaceuticals and vaccines for the human race as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, they always go back to that we're not a proper research for center. Animals exposed outside to all the elements. There's no controlled study group here. That's the beauty
Mm.
of it, is that no lab or pharmaceutical company can replicate without years of trial and error what we have here. We have
Mhm.
animals that have been exposed to all the environmental challenges that you can't duplicate in a lab. We have animals that have free roaming air, sunshine, and they have developed natural immunity by being naturally vaccinated, naturally by
Mhm.
migratory ducks coming in and bringing a virus. So they had to go through their own process of their own beautiful body of developing,
Mhm.
going through their own illness. Some passed away. Yeah, we had a lot. We had losses, but then we had the recovery and we had our herd immunity established, and then which means that they have the antibodies. So herd immunity, it was funny through COVID. They really used community immunity,
Mhm.
herd immunity. And now herd immunity doesn't exist anymore. So they're just cherry picking from their own
Mhm.
policies. They pick and choose what they want to use when they want to use it, and we should be really concerned about that because we are
Yeah.
losing our farms, we're losing our animals, we are losing our food security, and ultimately our sovereignty because we aren't making these
Yeah.
decisions for our Canadians anymore. We're allowing international bodies to make those decisions for us.
Aside from the letters that RFK has written,
Mhm.
are there any other steps that the states might take in protecting this farm?
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Really hoping and fingers are crossed for Trump. Um, we've went as far as RFK and Dr. Oz, but we are putting out a Hail Mary. Today is a manifesting miracle Monday. Every day is a new miracle day. And we
Yeah.
just keep asking for more miracles, please. But we are hoping that to hear from Trump any day, voicing his concerns on this and seeing if there's something that could be done still between the two countries to create a really great opportunity on a global scale to bring a therapeutic innovation to the table and help viruses and disease in the future a natural way.
I know this is hard to talk about
Uh,
if that fails and they come to the farm to cull. What's the plan? I know you have lots of people out there camped out. What's the plan when that happens?
the plan, yeah, it's the world is watching, and the world is going to continue to watch what happens here at Universal Ostrich Farms because we are ground zero. We're ground zero for change, beacons of hope for so many that there has to be a better way. That we've
Mhm.
just asked people to film. So we will film everything that happens here. It will be hard to watch. People who want to watch it will get to watch it. It'll be shared around the world. So we just ask for people to film, stay out of the way. This is peaceful. There's no violence. We want to demonstrate on how in the future, uh, you know, that you can make the biggest change by coming together in unity and solidarity, love, and when you believe in something so strong and it is for a better way, that we can fight for change and have our voices heard louder than if there's violence or aggression. We're not about that. We just want people
Mhm.
to come and see these big prehistoric ostriches before they're at risk of losing their lives to Canadian Food Inspection Agency. We hold hope every day. We have all the most amazing energy from supporters from all around the world continuously who kind of drive in. And if they're here for a day or if they're here for a week, that has given us so much strength and hope. And ostriches love it as well. They have a corner at their pen that they just get all of the attention in the world. They love music, they like the pictures, they like the attention. But we're just asking people to come and film. Yeah, to stay here, support for us as a family as well. But we're still remaining, I don't know, we remain hopeful. We really do. I do believe miracles happen every day, and this is a case, this is just right from wrong. This is right from wrong, and this is wrong. On so many levels,
Mhm.
this is wrong. And we just still have the opportunity to do the right thing here. And we're asking the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to do the right thing. And that is test them. Test them and show the world the tests of these animals and prove their
Mhm.
yeah.
That sounds totally fair. Is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know?
Uh, that's you know, there's so much. I mean, 244 days. Just picture that. 244 days, healthy, natural immunity animals that have antibodies that can help humanity, and they are at risk of losing their lives due to precedence war, due to egos, and due to unelected governing bodies we have operating here in Canada that are making the decisions for us. We can't make these decisions for ourselves on a provincial level, on a federal level. That has been being taken away from us, and we need to restore sovereignty back. to Canada and be able to start to make some of these decisions for ourselves again, protecting our industries like the agricultural industry. They went after the truckers. They were heroes, and then they, brought down the truckers. They went after the healthcare workers. Were all heroes. Then they went after them and said you have to be vaccinated for your heroic job now. And now we're coming after our farmers. And Canada is sitting on 550,000 doses of the H5N1 vaccination, which I don't even know. I don't. Who knows what kind of tests have been ran on them? But I think next we're looking at them having to say that farmers are going to have to be vaccinated to have their animals. And so we have the opportunity here to stop the cycle from repeating itself. And we're asking
Mhm.
you to stand with us at Universal Ostrich Farms at Ground Zero for Change, because this isn't just about ostriches. This is about our freedoms, our rights, our sovereignty, and our rights to treat and test and love our own animals.
Katie, thank you for your time here. I'll
Well,
make sure to link up your farm, your social media,
sure.
and keep us posted on what happens next. We'll make sure to share this far and
Absolutely.
wide in the meantime.
Karla, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do and the voice that you are.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay,
Okay, stay in touch.
I will. Thank you.